Hello, I'm Janice, and I'd like to share a tale that winds through love, betrayal, and the journey to reclaiming my self-worth. Let me introduce the key players in this unfolding drama. It all starts with me, Janice. Born into a wealthy family, many might consider my life one of privilege. From the outside, it seemed like I had everything, a life of comfort from the very beginning. Yet, my parents instilled in me the importance of hard work and earning my own way, rather than relying solely on our family fortune. My father, a self-made mogul in engine additives, turned a small niche market into a booming empire. My mother was equally ambitious, launching a successful chain of beauty salons that made her a prominent figure in the industry. When my parents divorced at 21, they handled it with remarkable grace, splitting their assets evenly while maintaining a strong friendship. My father chose the path of singlehood, diving into his work and enjoying his newfound independence. In contrast, my mother remarried, though I remained her only child. Then there's Matthew, my husband, who would soon become the catalyst for a profound shift in my life. We married shortly after I graduated from college, and I had just begun my dream job teaching music to spirited children. Life felt idyllic until I became pregnant, and that's when Matthew's true colors began to show. One laid-back Sunday, as he lounged on the sofa, Matthew casually suggested I quit my job to stay home with the baby. "Why don't you just stay at home? We'll manage," he said without a second thought. I was taken aback. Living on his salary alone wouldn't cut it, and I cherished my career. But Matthew dismissed my concerns with a smirk, implying we could easily lean on my parents for financial support. Anger surged within me. It wasn't the first time he'd made such insinuations, but the way he brought it up felt utterly disrespectful. Things reached a boiling point during dinner with his parents, where he mentioned it yet again. His mother, sharp and calculating, and his father, always ready to dispense unsolicited advice, eagerly backed his suggestion, weaving grand fantasies of a comfortable life funded by my family's wealth. Each remark cut deeper, making me feel like I was seen not as an individual, but merely as a means to an easier existence. That night, as I lay next to Matthew, an overwhelming sense of isolation washed over me. I turned to him, questioning softly, hoping I had misread his intentions. He faced me, his once tender gaze now sharp and calculating, and said, "It's not about need, Janice. It's about being smart. Your parents can afford it, and we deserve a break. Why not take advantage of that?" The word deserve echoed in my mind long after he drifted off to sleep, illuminating the stark differences in our views on dignity and independence. This moment marked the start of a profound personal journey, a struggle to determine how much of my values I was willing to compromise. We were clearly on divergent paths, each holding tightly to our beliefs. I found myself wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with ignored warnings and an uncertain future. Despite our initial clash over financial independence and personal pride, a part of me held on to the hope that we might realign our perspectives. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. Enter Matthew's parents, bringing a whirlwind of chaos with them. They were anything but self-sufficient. They had a remarkable talent for spotting handouts, and my family's financial stability seemed like an irresistible target to them. One evening, while we sat in our modest living room, Matthew's father, David, began pitching a new business venture that he claimed only needed a little startup cash. Mary, his mother, with her overly sweet tone that could induce nausea, added, "Janice, darling, with your family's backing, you could give us a leg up on this. It's practically a sure thing." I struggled to maintain my composure. "Mary, David, I've told you before that we're managing our finances without outside help. My parents' wealth isn't up for discussion." David, undeterred, pressed on like a seasoned salesman, "Come on, Janice. You wouldn't even notice the money gone. What's a few thousand to your dad? He probably spends that on golf in a weekend." I was taken aback by their audacity. Here they were, in our home, enjoying our hospitality, yet shamelessly eyeing my family's earnings as if they were entitled to them. Matthew tried to mediate, saying, "Maybe they have a point. It's just a loan, right? We'd be helping the family." The word family left a bitter taste in my mouth. "Matthew, since when did it become our responsibility to fund your parents' ventures?" The air grew cold. Mary, never one to miss a chance for drama, exclaimed, "Well, I never. We thought family supports one another, but if you're going to be stingy." Seeing red, I shot back. "Working for what you have isn't stingy, Mary. It's called being responsible. Maybe that's something you should consider." David attempted to defuse the tension. "Look, Janice, let's not get upset. We're just having a conversation here." "Talking? Right." I shot back sarcastically, exasperated that our conversations always circled back to how my family could solve their problems. After Matthew apologized for his parents' misunderstanding as they left, I lay awake, restless. This wasn't a mere misunderstanding. It felt like an invasion by two people who saw me not as a family member, but as an easy financial resource. When our daughter Elizabeth was born, I hoped for a shift in dynamics, but instead, the tension only escalated. Matthew's parents arrived at the hospital bearing a cheap, clearance-tagged onesie, while my parents brought a beautifully hand-knit blanket along with quality baby essentials. Mary's reaction to their generosity dripped with scorn and envy. "Wow, really laying it on thick, aren't they? Must be nice to throw money around. They could have bought you a house instead of all this fluff." Matthew chuckled, chiming in, "Yeah, Mom's right. Your folks really go all out. A house might have been more practical." Huh? Holding our newborn in my arms, my heart sank. Here I was, a new mother caught between the joy of my daughter's arrival and the suffocating weight of familial expectations, struggling to honor my values while maintaining some semblance of peace. It hit me hard. This struggle wasn't just about money. It was about respect, boundaries, and the kind of future I envisioned for my family. As I cradled our baby, it was painfully clear that all Matthew and his parents could focus on was how my parents chose to spend their money. Hearing Matthew echo his mother's mercenary views was crushing. It made me wonder, to them, was our daughter just another opportunity for financial gain? I tried to keep the peace, insisting, "It's not about the price tag, right? It's the thought that counts." But David pressed on, "Sure, but think about it. Investing in property now, that's a gift that keeps on giving." The car ride home from the hospital was tense. Matthew attempted to reassure me, claiming his parents were just old-fashioned and meant no harm. Yet, doubts began to creep in, gnawing at me. Was Matthew's affection genuine, or was he merely interested in my family's wealth? A few weeks later, during another uninvited visit, the topic resurfaced. We were crammed into our living room, Elizabeth fussing in my arms, when Mary couldn't resist commenting on the new stroller my mom had gifted us. "Must be nice having your folks shower Elizabeth with all these fancy toys and gadgets, though a contribution to a house fund would have been more useful, don't you think?" Her voice dripped with passive aggression. Sitting next to her, Matthew added, "Actually, babe, we've been thinking maybe your parents could help with a down payment instead of more baby stuff." Makes sense, right? I was taken aback. Not only were Matthew's parents relentless, but now he was echoing their sentiments, turning our daughter's birth into a tool for financial leverage. It felt as if I were trapped in a twisted reality where love and family were overshadowed by material wealth. Is that what this is about for you, Matthew? Using my parents for money? 2. I couldn't hide the hurt in my voice. I thought we were in this together, for better or worse, not for richer or poorer. Matthew appeared taken aback, but Mary merely sniffed. "Well, when your wife's parents are wealthy, it's only practical to think about these things." After they left, I lay awake with Elizabeth sleeping peacefully beside me. The harsh truth hit me, my marriage and family felt like a transaction, and I was the currency. The ensuing years were a roller coaster. Elizabeth blossomed into a spirited 4-year-old, full of life and laughter, but life threw unexpected curveballs. First, it was my mother. Her accident was sudden and devastating. I was engulfed in grief, struggling to hold myself together for Elizabeth's sake. Yet Matthew's initial response wasn't to ask how I was coping but rather, "So, how much are you getting from your mom's will?" It felt like a slap in the face. My mother hadn't even been laid to rest, and here he was, eyeing her legacy like a vulture. According to her will, I inherited the beauty salon chain. I knew nothing about running a business, but Matthew was eager to step in. "Babe, let me handle this. You know I've got a knack for business," he offered with his usual confidence. Lost in my grief, I allowed him to take the lead, though I made sure the ownership papers stayed in my name. I hoped, perhaps naively, that he might turn things around for us. Then, barely a year later, my father passed away from a heart attack. Losing both my parents in such a short span shattered something deep inside me. I needed Matthew more than ever, yet I began to realize that our views on money, support, and family were worlds apart. The day after my father's death, reeling from the loss, I hoped for some semblance of sympathy or at least a respectful silence from Matthew and his parents. Unfortunately, that was not to be. As soon as they walked through the door, David barely concealed his excitement, eagerly speculating about the inheritance. "So, Janice, there must be a hefty sum coming your way, huh?" His eyes gleamed with barely contained glee. I saw red. "Can you not, for once, just stop talking about money?" I exploded, my words ringing sharply through the room. Mary adopted an offended demeanor immediately. "Well, I never. We're just concerned about the family's future. No need to be rude." Matthew tried to smooth things over as usual. "They're just curious. It's a big deal, you know." "A big deal?" I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. "My parents are gone, and all you and your parents can think about is cashing in. Is that all I am to you? A bank?" The room fell silent, the tension so thick it felt tangible. Matthew glanced between me and his parents, mumbling a half-hearted apology, but the damage was done. I could no longer stand the sight of their greed and their complete lack of empathy. "Get out," I said, my voice steady but ice-cold. They left, Mary muttering under her breath and David scowling. Matthew lingered, trying to justify his parents' behavior, but I was beyond listening. 3 days later, Matthew burst through the door, his face lit up with what he considered good news. "Babe, I've got awesome news," he exclaimed, barely containing his excitement. "I've struck a deal to sell the hairdresser chain. Can you believe it?" My jaw dropped. "What? You did what without even asking me?" I was seething, a mix of betrayal and disbelief coursing through me. Before we could delve into a serious discussion, his parents showed up, ready to celebrate as if we'd won the lottery. They brought a lavish feast from a fancy restaurant and high-roller cigars. Mary was beaming, waving the cigars in my face. "Guess what, honey? We sold the old condo and put down a deposit on a beach house. We're all moving to the coast." I felt as if I were trapped in a nightmare. "Hold on, you what?" "Nobody asked me about moving. I don't want to live by the beach with all that humidity and the winds with a kid. Are you out of your mind?" Mary dismissed my concerns with a wave of her hand. "Oh, don't you worry about that. We've also booked a crew. You should come with us. It'll be fabulous." "Where is this money coming from?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. "Well, darling, with your father's passing and the sale of the salons, money's no object now. We're set for life. Think about it, yachts, private jets, we're living the dream." Mary's eyes sparkled with dollar signs. I turned to Matthew, utterly dumbfounded. Why are we even talking about selling my mom's business again? And what's this nonsense about being set for life? Babe, it makes sense, Matthew insisted. Managing both businesses will be too much. We need to focus on what's more profitable. It's for our future, for our daughter's future. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the greed, the audacity, it was all too much. Show me the financials for the salon, I demanded. I want to see everything before we make any rash decisions. Matthew squirmed, avoiding eye contact. Look, it's all about our future, about making sure we're comfortable. His parents chimed in, pressing me to just let go and enjoy the windfall, but as they spoke, it became painfully clear that this wasn't just about securing a comfortable future. It was about exploiting my grief and inheritance for their gain. As I surveyed the scene before me, all I could envision were vultures circling overhead. Why the sudden rush to sell the hairdressing shops? I pressed Matthew for an explanation. With a nonchalant shrug that seemed to dismiss the gravity of the situation, he replied with what he thought was rationality. Look, after your dad's passing, managing both businesses doesn't add up. We need to concentrate on what's more profitable. The auto oil venture is literally striking gold compared to the salons. His parents quickly joined the conversation, eagerly chiming in. Think about it, dear. Selling those small shops could set you up for a life of comfort and luxury. Why bother with them? Mary's voice was coated with greed, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Their blatant avarice made my skin crawl. I want you all to leave, I demanded, my voice steady and strong. This is a time for mourning, not for scavenging through what he left behind. Matthew attempted to interject, but I silenced him with a glare. And another thing, this inheritance we're discussing, it's mine. You and your parents have no say in this matter. The room chilled as they realized I was not as compliant as they had assumed. With heavy steps and darker scowls, they left, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the looming battle ahead. The day after my father's funeral felt bleak, draped in a fog of sorrow. Matthew, however, seemed oblivious to the somber mood. Over a lackluster breakfast, he was already plotting. We need to call a meeting with your father's company executives pronto, he declared, his voice slicing through the silence with an aggressive edge. 3. I paused, toast in hand, and looked at him. Matthew, my father has just been laid to rest. Can't this wait? I need time to process all this. He dismissed my concerns with a casual flick of his hand, emphasizing that time was money and we had to act swiftly. Frustrated and seeking solid footing, I contacted our family lawyer for a detailed overview of the barbershop chain status and insights into my father's business dealings. A month passed, filled with legal terms and financial statements, during which Matthew and his parents bombarded me with unsolicited advice and greedy propositions. Without so much as a greeting, Matthew dove straight into the conversation. You know, I've been thinking I'm the right man to take over your dad's company, he stated boldly. I was left dumbfounded, but he continued, and I'll need a new car, something befitting a business leader. The latest BMW should suffice. Before I could respond, Mary chimed in with her extravagant demands. The beach house is nearly done. We just need an additional $460,000 for finishing touches, plus some extra for luxury furniture. And darling, I expect you to fund an account for my expenses. I need to maintain my lifestyle. Listening to their relentless demands, something inside me snapped. Clutching the divorce papers like a protective talisman, I interrupted their chatter. Matthew, we need to talk, I declared, placing the documents in front of him on the coffee table. He picked them up, confusion etching his face. What's this? He managed to ask, his voice trembling. Divorce papers, I announced, each word clear and decisive. I've had the business audited. Matthew, you've driven it to the brink of collapse. As I confronted him about the management of our business, his face paled. his demeanor that of a child caught in a misdeed. I was trying to make things better. He stammered, his excuses as fragile as his waning confidence. Make it better by firing our most talented staff and neglecting the essentials that made the business thrive? I retorted, my voice rising, fueled by a potent mix of anger and betrayal. Mary, ever the meddler, couldn't resist butting in. Now, dear, let's remember he's entitled to half of everything. Marriage binds assets. After all, I couldn't help but laugh, though it was devoid of any joy. Nice try, but everything has been in my name since before I made the colossal mistake of marrying your son. He gets nothing from me. The room fell silent, their grandiose plans crumbling. And another thing, I continued, fixing Matthew with a firm gaze. You're going to repay every penny you've cost the business, every single penny. When the reality of the divorce sank in, Matthew became desperate. Please, can't we talk about this? There has to be another way, he begged, his voice cracking. Not to be outdone in theatrics, his parents launched into a tearful saga about how they had sunk all their funds into the coastal house, a property now at risk without further investment. We're going to lose everything, his mother sobbed, tears flowing freely. Please think of what this means for us. I listened, my heart hardened by their prior actions, feeling nothing but cold detachment. Sorry, but that's your mess, I said, my tone firm and resolute. With newfound determination, I guided them to the door, closing it on this chapter of my life. In the days that followed, I didn't dwell on the past. Instead, I focused on the future. Selling the apartment that Matthew and I once shared provided just enough for a quaint, welcoming house that promised a new beginning for my daughter and me. Stepping into our new home, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of peace enveloping us in a way that had been missing for far too long. The wheels of justice turned slowly but surely. When they finally caught up with Matthew, he was ordered by the courts to compensate for the turmoil he had inflicted on the hairdressing chain. His recklessness had a price, and he was forced to liquidate his share of our old apartment to meet his financial obligations. Watching him be held accountable was bittersweet vindication for all the hardships he had caused. Out of nowhere, my phone rang one day, and on the other end was my former mother-in-law, her voice tinged with desperation. We're in a bind. We need help to buy a place. Any amount would help, she pleaded, her audacity leaving me incredulous. I took a deep breath, collecting my thoughts before responding. You made your bed, I replied, my tone steady and resolute. It's time you lie in it. Ending the call, a mix of emotions washed over me. My anger at their continued sense of entitlement was undeniable, but so was the profound relief at finally setting firm boundaries. After the tumultuous divorce and reclaiming control over my mom's hairdressing chain, life began to brighten again. It was a challenging journey, but gradually the salons started to regain their former vibrancy. Welcoming back the talented stylists we'd lost felt like a triumphant parade. Watching them walk through those doors again, ready to weave their magic and breathe life back into the place. It turned out I was more suited for the business world than I ever imagined. Every day brought new lessons and surprises about what I could achieve. If not for the harsh twists life threw my way, I might never have discovered this capability within myself. Managing my dad's car oil business was another challenge. For now, I decided to hire a manager to oversee operations while I acclimated to the industry. It's all yours for now, but keep me in the loop, I told him, making it clear that I was still the one in charge. I thought about the future. Maybe when Elizabeth is around 22, I might pass it on to her if she's interested. I wanted her to have options to choose her path. Meanwhile, our new home, just Elizabeth and me, became a sanctuary of peace, a stark contrast to the chaos we had left behind. It was small, but it was ours, a place where we could grow, heal, and start anew. Every corner of our home was filled with laughter, every nook cradling a memory we were creating together. In the garden, Elizabeth's laughter was a balm to my soul. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you," she'd say, her eyes alight with wonder and admiration. "You're going to be even more amazing," I'd respond, pulling her into a hug. I knew deep down that we were on the brink of something wonderful together. We were unstoppable, ready to embrace whatever the future held with open arms and hopeful hearts.